Bob, it's not really just anything to do with that if you're actually following what's happening in the whole country, right? Because I haven't been focused on Huddersfield because the council gave consent to literally destroy every single thing that I basically like about Huddersfield. I mean, all the whole concept of being proud, proud of being where you're from or liking where you're from even. If you don't like where you live or where you're from, you can't be proud of it. Things like football, they go everywhere and wear a town shirt because they're proud of it. But is it just a couple of stripes they're proud of, like blue and white stripes? Is that what are they proud of? A name, but what is it, right? If you're in the middle of the desert, right, with a town shirt on. Is it just the shirt you're proud of? Is it the shirt you like? People have the shirts on the walls, so they only like the shirt. Oh, my favourite thing in the world is a blue and white striped shirt, right? Look, what is Huddersfield, right? And what is it to certain people? There are things that I love about here, right? And, I've had a lucky life where I've been around the whole country and got to see a lot of different places and know what the country is, right? To know what this country is and to know what the towns and villages and places of this country are, right? You appreciate the things that you like at home, right? And what's special at home and what's valuable, right? Like the doctors at Dalton, right, on the main road, that cute little doctors, in the old building by Tulsa Museum, and the barn behind Tulsa Museum, and when I used to come off the motorway and come back past the Hare and Hounds, like an old barn at the side of the road. The character of the place, Castle Hill, Emily Moore Mast, people like to go to Slough or walking up on the moors or Home Firth, Compost Cafe. Every single thing on the if you ask me, right, 10 years ago, what do you like about Huddersfield, or what are you proud of? What's the point in being here, right? I got a list of things, right? Now, every single one of those things is gone. It's been crossed off. Our council gave consent to strip it out, rip it out, or destroy it, right? So, what do I like about Huddersfield? Nothing. Well, if you don't like anything about Huddersfield anymore, right, what's it to be proud of? Now, when you've got these cities like, Coventry or Liverpool or Walsall or whatever, and there's crime, everyone hates each other, no one likes each other, right? They're always fighting. Why is the crime so high? Why is no one happy, right? If there's nothing here to love and like, what are you here to be happy about? Oh, don't worry about those things, there's other things that... No, I like those things, right? Now, also... like my grandma's house, right? When I went to my grandma's house, right? It's my grandma's house. I grew up in there, right? And it's got smells, right? It's got character. And when my grandparents pass away, right? My mum sells it off. And the people who move it in completely strip it out and redo it out. Even if I go into the house now, I can't really remember my grandma, right? But if I'd have gone in there, right, and I'm not saying that it has to be a health hazard or anything wrong with it like that, right, but it's a character. I used to sometimes go to schools, right, around the country, like private schools, to do deliveries, right, and when you go into the private school, right, it's got old furniture, like when you used to go to school in your classroom. We can't even go to our schools anymore now because they put fences around them because everyone's suspected to be a paedophile. You can't even go sit in your own school for a memory, right, to remember when you used to be little to play in the playground, right? This whole kind of... the constant change, the rate of renewal, right? It is erasing character, history, and past. Now, some towns and places are all about that, and that's actually what they use the word pride for, and like, and even love. Like Tewkesbury, places in the Cotswolds, Stratford, Shakespeare's Stratford, all these things, right? Now, I know that many of these places have got cinemas, many of these places have got coffee shops, many of these places have got Starbucks, but the rate of expansion of them, when you used to go to Dorchester, right, they've got Maiden Castle. It's huge. It's massive, right? The walls of it are huge. That's an ancient site. Dorchester's quite a modern town. They've got a modern skateboard park. They've got modern shops, but they've also got lots of old areas, right? Like with 1600 buildings and things like that. But the expansion, the explosion rate of Dorchester, it just didn't explode. It was around the same perimeter size of it, right? And then they got a lot of things preserved there. Now, I don't know what it is with Kirklees Council, right? But it didn't always used to be like this, because the council was in Wakefield, remember? And they had the Wakefield Council buildings, right? This is what I think it is, right? This is my opinion. It is. Kirklees Council was only built around 1971, 1973 or whatever, early 1970s, right? 1971 to 1973, right? And the building's new, right? The building's new. They're not in a traditional setting. It doesn't create a traditional atmosphere. It doesn't create traditional thoughts or sentiment, right? It's a brand new, complete concrete building, right? And it's underneath Castle Hill, which is way up above it, right? And it's below Castle Hill, so it sets it down. So it's almost like underneath it and below it. So if you're underneath and below something, you always try to strive upwards, right? And that building has got a very kind of... it's almost like it's modern, There's no ideas conjured up in the mind or thoughts when you work in that building, right? Or of tradition or heritage. I mean, in Huddersfield and Now group, there's loads of amazing pictures of, like that old Unicorn pub and things like that, or all the old liberal clubs and things like that. Now, I know that this building here is one of the old ones, right? But when you go inside it, there's nothing to remember anything. I'm not trying to suggest, right, that, we want all buildings to be like cobwebs, right? And some sort of Tulsa museum with... smelly old jackets and ancient old artifacts and dust and cobwebs everywhere and things like that. But there's to know who you are and where you're from and things like that. Why watch Last in the Summer Wine, for example, right? Why watch it? Oh, why do you want to watch old guys knocking around on the moors, right? But everyone in the world watches it. It's a worldwide programme. They also knackered the stairs on there, right? And Last in the Summer, not Compost Cafe, at Sid's Cafe, right? At Sid's Cafe, and they didn't even need planning permission for this. The people who do that tour company, right, just one day went and obliterated them stairs, right, just for disabled access. So people could go, people who are not even abled can then get into the coffee shop and stuff themselves with cakes, right, which don't make them any more healthier. But why come all the way to Huddersfield to look at the front set of Sid's Cafe when those stairs are the thing that you go look at? It's like going to a ski resort and chopping the mountain down, right? Why would you go to a ski resort, right, and chop the top of the mountain off, right, so there was no ski slopes? What was the point in going there? Oh, it's for disabled access. How do you work that one out? So for disabled access to a ski resort, or we chop the top of the mountain off because, so they can have access to it, and then it's just a flat top. It's that principle to it with those stairs at Compost Cafe. It's ruining what it actually is, right? Now, it's not just about that, though, because people can debate and people can argue and people can object and people can discuss it, right? Which is what people do in this group. But when it comes to Kirklees Council and a lot of councils, and this is why I put that Colchester Council Watch link, right? This is the thing, right? I am focused on Central Parliament at the moment, and there's a lot of things going on with the Mayor of London, and there are lots of protest groups, right? And at the moment they're cutting down all the cameras because they're putting all these fines up and cameras and surveillance and things like that, and it's huge. There's been a massive battle and campaign going on, and my attention has been on London and this whole Mayor of London thing. When they're going to knight him now, yeah, he's crime's up through the roof, and there's a lot of people not happy because it's all to do with this C30 or C40 cities thing, and it's all to do with Starmer and Davos and all those kind of things. And then we've got one of our MPs, this Kim Leadbeater, right, who's doing this assisted suicide bill. But while what I have been focused on, right, is political rights. Because if you ain't got political rights to act, to do anything, you can't act or oppose it. So I've been learning the right to petition and privileges and protections, right, and all the law around that, and trying to help the people out in London with their problem. Because they've actually, and when you learn about the rights, you learn about the Constitution and the proper law, like the 1297 confirmation of the Charters, and you start learning about the roots of religion in the law. So I've been completely and totally learning about the legal side of it and the Constitution. And from 1297, there's a certain section of law that cannot be changed, right? Because it's the Constitution, and any act of Parliament done against it is void and null and has no effect, right? And this is when you get into Kim Leadbeater now with her assisted suicide bill, because this is debatable, but this is my claim, right? From learning that life is a protected characteristic under God, right? And then that is actually enshrined into the legislation through the charters and then onwards, right? So they're complaining about all these protected characteristics like, Chinese, Asian, and then religions and so forth, that you're not even allowed to say anything wrong about them. But then they're attacking life and they're making it legal for them to take people's lives when life is a protected characteristic, right? Now, London, in your Magna Carta and your charters, you've got the ancient rights and liberties of London. And one of them is it's not meant to have any tolls in there. There are some tolls, but they're all around the edge of London, old tolls from the late 1600s, early 1700s, right, around London. You're not meant to have tolls within the city because it's meant to be paid for by all of the citizens, and passage on the roads is not chargeable because it's called the freeway, right, the King's Peace. And there are some very important roads that go across England which actually form a huge cross, like Fosse Way and Watling Street form a big cross, which is like the actual flag of the country, right? It's where you get the term King's Cross from also, but it's actually, there's High Cross, which is just below Coventry, right? And then these King's Pieces, right, are meant to be, one of them, the Watling Street went from Dover to Shrewsbury, but then it also continued past there to Anglesey, and then it's where people from Ireland travelled to London, right? And when they travelled on that road, it had to be upkept, but it was paid for by everyone, and no user of the road paid for passage on that road, right, or a toll. Now, the whole of London is meant to be toll-free. They've just put a toll on the Blackwall Tunnel as well, which has always been toll-free. So, but the ancient liberties of London are actually in the Magna Carta and are still in effect. And when they put the congestion charge in London in 2002, Ken Livingstone, Tony Blair, we've got a case for this by petition to the House of Lords, right? That it's illegal. And Labour acted illegally, and also the Mayor of London is acting illegally now. I don't know if people of Huddersfield have been following it or know about it, but in London, this Blade Runner thing and this Stop ULEZ campaign is quite big. And then in Wales, you've got this 20 mile an hour, they're opposing 20 mile an hour speed limits, where 10% to 30% of all electors of Wales, it doesn't matter if you put them under the local council constituencies, or because there's 11 local councils in Wales, or is it 22, sorry, or whether you put them under the members of the Senedd areas, which is the Welsh Parliament, or whether you put them under the Parliament, England Parliament MPs areas, because they've got areas as well, it still works out that it's over 10% signed. So if you get one of the councils in Wales areas, right, there's over 10%. That's enough to recall every single MP, or recall every single Senedd member, or recall councillors, right? It's a very high percentage. And what happened is that this petition was very successful, and the government haven't actually acted on what the people asked for. And this is what we're challenging with some petitions now over that. And they gave decision-making powers to the local council, rather than what it actually says in the law is that if over 5% of any area of people sign, they get to decide themselves by vote, by referendum. And they've not done that. They've given it back to local councils again, right? And it's well over 5%. 10% to 30% in every single area have signed that, right? So they're being gypped off out of democratic process, right? Now, this is why I'm coming into this thread and conversation and group, right, with this attitude and with this knowledge, because I'm well aware that there's been a lot going on with Huddersfield and the development of the town centre, and there's this like Save the Trees group, but then they've got the people who are very pro regeneration, or like the young kids and the kind of like modernist people in Huddersfield who are all like, you know, Barry Sheeman fans, and like the media centre, and they've got no attachment to any character or history of the area or sentiment, you know. They just want a out with the old and in with the new sort of thing, right? Which is effectively what's going on here. But I haven't been focused on that, because Kirklees Council is the most corrupt council in all England. The councillors and the Labour Party are the most corrupt, evil and traitorous group of people in England, right? And what they've been doing, I know from before all this, right, that when I investigated the road signs and found out most of the road signs at the enforcement sites around England were illegal, right, on purpose to make money out of people for fines. Well, that's the police, but the council put them there, right? And nothing happened with it. And that investigation ties in with this whole ULEZ and the Wales 20 mile an hour people, because it's all about speed limits and road signs, right, and things like that, but also about democratic power versus the councillors and versus the police when they're withholding it from us. We used to have juries making decisions in local councils, and you can petition Parliament, but they're also lying about that. But there were various things, but I know that when you've got people with money who make an application to the council, they've bought some land, they apply to the council for consent, we get a right to object, put an objection in, and then the council, you know, are meant to decide on it like a court. But there are some other processes that have been hidden and lied about to us, which is that you can actually appeal it to a court, and you can actually appeal the council decision, but you can actually have a jury, or you can petition Parliament, and they've been obstructing that. And this is when also the public consultation comes in. Now, the public consultation is the council are actually going out of their way to ask the public and get opinion, right? But public opinion is meant to have a decision-making process which overrides the councillors, right? Because you're actually going to the public and not to the council. Now, this is a problem for Labour and for business contractors who want to make money, and for basically partisan political party power and the powers that be, which, you know, this whole investor part of it, BlackRock, Vanguard, who own most of the companies like Care, Alpha Beat Me, all these other things, right? And the builders and the private builders as well, The thing is, the voters are meant to decide, right? We only elect councillors to represent us. And what they've been doing is taking that power away. And there's a lot of people who don't know that you can actually get the council to appeal it. You can appeal a council decision, and you can actually go higher to Parliament, or you can actually, you're meant to be able to get actually people deciding it. Now, in 2010, only 2010, they made, there's a 2010 petitioning order from Parliament that says that if 5% of a local area sign something, the local council cannot decide on the matter. The local council authority are not allowed to decide on it if you get over 5% signatures, right? It has to be, they have to be given a referendum, right? Or you can have Parliament decide it. But they actually, Parliament just said that Parliament committees and MPs aren't going to debate it, right? They've actually given it to us, the people in law. They've set this number 5%, right? So we have to decide. Now, Kirklees is quite a big area and it's quite heavily populated, so it's a bit of a task to do. But if everyone knew that and if everyone could be bothered, we can actually us decide rather than the council. And I've tried a few times, right, in the groups, but no one just listens or picks up on it. And the Huddersfield Examiner they've always shot me down, and the Huddersfield Examiner have always opposed every single thing that I've ever done, and even actually tried to make out that I don't even have any political rights or anything like that, right? When I'm actually fighting for these rights that you can even go around and do things protected from prosecution, right? Including like canvassing and things like that, right? Now, the police also are opposed to us, because the police are in with this whole C40, C30 cities thing, Sadiq Khan. They like surveillance cameras. They want more cameras. Crime's gone up, because of immigration. Traffic's increased. Where's all this crime coming from, right? But it doesn't matter where it's coming from. The police are wanting more security in cameras, which tie into all these new plans for these cities. And what they're really doing is priming Huddersfield for this thing that Starmer and Sadiq Khan are bringing in and wanting to spread everywhere, and they're secretly priming our town for all that, with all these barriers and bollards and the whole thing, right? And we're not getting any say or vote in it. And what upsets me about Huddersfield is we've got these massive groups like Eddie's group that's got 20,000 people in it nearly, or whatever, and everyone is sharing these photographs. So, like, remember this place, remember that place, you used to like this place, or used to like that place. Well, you don't like it anymore, do you? Because it's not there, right? And there's a lot of people complaining. Now, I agree there's a lot of people who like it and who support it, but there's a lot of people in the middle, right, who aren't sure. And what I find in this group is, like this particular conversation here, I find people who are sort of like in the middle ground. They're not kind of like, they're sort of just debating it, but their debate's not going to amount to anything, because the council are just going to do what they bloody well like anyway, and we aren't going to get sweet FA decision in any single thing they do or any future of this town, like that horrible horror show of a big corner wedge at the top of town where the college used to be, technical college, what they've put there. And when I went past that with my mum, because I haven't been out that much recently into town, I literally could not actually believe my eyes that it had come to pass. I thought it was a joke, right? It's the most horrible thing that anyone could even conceive of ever. And the whole thing with the Save the Trees group were absolutely mortified. I think the woman split up with her partner because of what happened, and that group had been campaigning to save trees for so long, and then the council ripped out, the trees that she thought were safe right in the middle of the town centre, or by the one of the streets that is actually a little bit traditional still, right? So, but the thing is, right, people in this group here and the Huddersfield groups, they know a lot more about me, about all these funds and development funds and processes and procedures and, you know, like the regeneration plans and on all that, right? And that's what you're trying to tell me now. You're trying to tell me about all these this BrownField Land Release Fund, a government scheme to support local authorities transforming surplus land and building it into new homes, which then they give away to other developers, and those developers don't have to spend the money on them anymore, right? Which it is all our money spent on it. But they're selling off all the things that we own, that the people own. You know, that guy, that barber from Honley, Copley, he went to Australia, made millions, came back and bought all of the estate at Huddersfield, Ramsden Estate, and gave it to the people, right? How would he feel? What would he feel about that being sold off? You know, there's so much else to say about, you know, if you didn't hold any land or own any land, you couldn't even go to Parliament to be represented, to represent in Parliament. They only called the barons in, the landowners, you know, or the bishops who were in charge of people, the spiritual leaders, right, who were in charge of the congregations of the people. So unless you were in charge of groups of people or you had land, you never got called to Parliament until they got the House of Commons, but then you had to have a small amount of land, right? Where the public aren't going to, you know, it's the certain things that the public is meant to be for the public benefit. I'll say this as well. In Magna Carta, right, and in the confirmation of the Charters Act, which is all complete, total law in effect, because it cannot be repealed, Charter of Liberties cannot be repealed, and the confirmation of the Charters cannot be repealed, right? There's a legal requirement for anything that the whole purpose of the country is to be the profit of the whole realm, right? To the profit of the people, not private persons in other countries or only particular people, right? So whenever to the profit of the whole realm, right? Well, we're losing a realm because the council are selling everything off because there's this big black hole in government, but yet they've got all these individual particular funds which still seem to have money, which are still going into these projects, which not all people want them to happen. But it's it's government fund money, it's taxpayers' money, right, which is being used for things that people in those areas don't necessarily support, right? Well, the councillors are making the decisions supposedly on behalf of the people, right? But this is the thing with the consultation. The consultation, right, is asking people, the council are going out of the way to ask people what they think about it. But they've done it so that they don't have to act on it, right? Well, what's the point in asking people and using government funding resources to even read those responses if you don't have to act on it? And I can't see how they can ignore the consultation when there's that Local Councils Authorities Act, when it says that if 5% of people oppose something, then they get a referendum on it. Because when you do a consultation, right, you're actually asking, you're getting petitions from the people, which a petition is someone's written opinion, their self signed or approved by that person, right? It always is a petition, right? It doesn't matter what you use that petition for, the local council or parliament, right? So I can't see how you can ignore a consultation legally in law, right? Because that local authorities petitions 2010 order makes it impossible. Because if 5% of the local area even respond to a consultation, it's but this is the thing. People don't bother to respond, or people don't bother to give an opinion because they bluffed us with this rule that they don't have to abide by the consultation, right? They don't have to abide by it. But I think they do, unless they're getting figures that are well under 5%, because hardly anybody's bothering to respond to it. But out of the people who do, if you had a referendum in Kirklees and only a smaller amount of people bothered to vote in it, then still out of those people, the majority out of the ones who did bother will get the win. So it's a small amount of people. Even if it was like the same amount of people you have in a jury, like 12, right? Now, the local councillors aren't going to like that, because then it's not Labour elected councillors who say they've got control of the council who get to decide on it. It's all of the people who come back from the consultation, right? And it might even be a small number. So it could even be a small number of people who get to decide on it. But that's democracy, right? That's democracy. And then you've got this other aspect to the council, which is they've got a selflessness policy. Now, this is hilarious because this Colchester Council Watch drew this to my attention. They've got a selflessness policy. When you work at that council, you have to act selflessly because you're acting for your constituents, right? So how can you have a political party affiliation? How can you have any policies on board on your person or in a strategy? Because you can't hold anything. You're like an empty shell, only with electors. And every decision that goes on the council table, like a court, right, it has to be decided based on the evidence, case specific to each thing, when the evidence is given. So you don't know what your verdict's going to be until you see the evidence, until people decide whether they vote for it or against it. And what Labour do is they've got this manifesto. And what they do with the manifesto is that they throw out the manifesto to all the voters, and then they tell them these are the things we stand for, and then they get the people to vote for them, and then at that point, literally, they take it for granted that, a majority of Labour people supported us, so we can do what the hell we want, because clearly they support every single thing we do, even though we haven't seen the evidence for each case yet before the council. It's like getting a jury and saying, do you want to vote for the party that finds everyone guilty or vote for the party that finds everyone not guilty, right? That's his manifesto, right? And said, we'll find everyone guilty. And then say, right, every single case that we hear this year, the jury's going to vote them as guilty because that's who you voted for. These are the type of jurors you voted for, right? Regardless of what evidence there is. So it's impossible. Control of a council by a party under a selflessness policy is impossible in law, right? It's impossible. You can't have it. It just is. It can't be possible, and it's a defect in the council. But further than that, it's Labour mainly, and these partisan political parties. They want to control decisions in the council, political parties, when it's a democratic process. And at the end of the day, the council was the court, right? It heard all matters. It heard civil tort cases, matters to do with the roads and taxation in the local area, and repair and consents for orders and building, and crimes, offences, criminal complaints. And really, the magistrates' court is just a committee that specialises in crime, and the county court is a matter that specialises in tort cases, and the council now specialises in consents, applications, permissions, road orders, and certain tax monies, parking fines, things like that. It's still a court, right? But you've just got more and more. You've got a high number of councillors, aldermen, whatever you want to call them, because there are so many areas and it's expanded loads, right? Otherwise, it would be quite small. And you're also meant to have a jury as well, the jurats, which have gone, because they even got rid of them from the county court as well, right? And from the magistrates' court, don't have a jury in there anymore. So juries were called in to make a lot of these decisions in the local council, not just the councillors, they're aldermen. You got like the mayor and the aldermen around him, whether there's, 8 of them or 18 of them or 80 of them, right? Depending on whether they want to call a jury in or not. So there are quite a lot of legal things. They've also been ripping us off and saying that judicial review is the only possible thing you can do, and it has to be on a point of law or if something has not been done right, okay? You can have judicial review. Judicial review is also supposed to have a jury, but they scrap that. It costs a fortune. Lawyers make loads of money out of it. People can't afford it. There is an appeal to the council, actually to their decision, which they're saying there isn't, but there is. It even says that in the 2010 petition order, right? And it also says it in quite a lot of acts of law through 1837 as well, right? You can check all this. I've got all the documents on my computer. They're all Parliament books anyway, right? So, we're being tricked. The consultation's been run illegally because Labour, mainly in our area, by God, if hell freezes over, they're not going to do what we want or we say, right? And this is why I believe the councillors are criminals. And then, you know, all these highways departments and so forth, it all becomes strategic. It all becomes like, if you go to Shrewsbury, like Care are the local council highways department. It's Care, it's a private company, right? They've got profits, they've got strategies that they do with these governments, with the police for all these security cameras and everything like that. Effectively, the police are meeting with the council, all these private companies are meeting, and the builders, and they're doing what the hell they want, right? And we're not having any effective say whatsoever. And what's upsetting me is that we've got all these groups and people aren't very educated and they don't know. They know some things. They know about all these funds and where the money's coming from, and supposedly it's got policies and supposedly it's got procedures and so forth and so forth. A lot of the policies are facade, right? A lot of the policies are just like facade. It's like abbreviated or summarised. They're summarising the law in a very easy to understand form, which isn't actually true or not fully true. It omits and excludes the things they don't want you to know about, like the things that can have them removed, override their decisions, or get a democratic process into it. And they summarise all these, and then they call it the rules, the policy, right? But it's not legislation. It's not law. If you want to know what the rules are, read the legislation, read the actual act that creates it, the instrument, right? Nothing on Kirklees Council website which is summarised or put into a rule or policy is the truth of law. It's completely and utterly fake, false and a lie by Labour Party and politicians to take your democratic rights away from you. And those consultations are illegal, for sure. And some consultations around England will have 5% of people responding to them. Maybe not all with the same opinion, but I think if 5% of people respond, I think it's got to go to referendum anyway, even if there's some for or against. So, but that part you'll have to check out. But it is 5%. And why I don't like all this is to do with these funds and money, because you've got, Kirklees councillors saying they've got no money, but it's a lie. They have got money because they're continuing to do things and get these grants and act and do certain things, which not everyone is certain we should be doing it, or we should be using that money from central government for this or that, right? The council is selling assets off, buildings, museums, libraries, many things that people are not necessarily happy with, but yet they're getting all this money flowing in. Isn't it brilliant? Isn't it a coincidence that all of the things that money magically seems available for now, where does that money go? Well, you might say, well, it's going to this place here, but no, that place doesn't just magically transform. Someone is paid to do it. And someone doesn't do that out of the goodness of their heart, not for profit. It's a business owned by someone, right, with shares in, whether it's a smaller builder or a bigger one, or Care or Taylor Wimpey or whoever, right? And a lot of them are owned by companies who are owned by companies, right? And then you've got Darren Smith Builders who does it for the trophy and the glory, right? And no one stops that planning permission because it's the council's champion or whatever, right? They're all profiting out of it. They're making money out of this government fund when the government haven't hardly got any money. It's taxpayer money that is used. Oh yeah, we get this or we get that, but someone's making money out of it and profit, and not us. We're not making financial profit out of it ourselves, not financial profit. Now, this is the thing in Magna Carta. The word parley is meant to mean to talk, to meet, to go and talk, like the white flag. But no side will attack each other. No side will use the law against each other, right? Parley, parliament, right? Send the landowners and send the bishops to meet in parliament, right? And now we've got commons. The other word for if you change the E to A instead of parley with an E, parley to parlay, that is to make profit or money, right? It's to make money out of something, right? Now, you've got these courts, right, where private companies are suing our government. If you search Matt Kennard, right, Double Down News or on YouTube, Matt Kennard, right, he's investigated all this overseas. Our government is being sued by big companies if it changes the law to affect the profits of private companies, big companies, and not just their projected profits. If these companies have worked out that they're going to make a certain amount of money and the government changes the law and then they're not going to make it anymore, they sue them just for harming their potential profits. They're stopping them making money. Now, if you interpret the word parlay, which is to make money out of something, our government does not exist for the sole purpose of private entities profiting off the realm. In fact, that's a perversion of the truth. The real thing is in Magna Carta that it's meant to be, and the Charter of the Liberties and so forth, it's meant to be for profit of all the realm. That is the realm itself, which means the government and us. But the government is borrowing money and it's in debt, which is why Gordon Brown sold the money off, right? So the realm is not in profit. We are not in profit. No working class person is in profit. The proper word of parliament is to meet, to talk, to discuss, right? And to debate and decide and even to vote on things, right? Now, this is where we get this. We're on to King Charles now, because King Charles has made this statement when he's at these meetings, repping for all these big events, whether it's World Health Organization or World Economic Forum, right? And he says that, quote, a military-style campaign from a private corporate sector beyond leaders with trillions at its disposal. But where have these disposable trillions come from? Well, they've taken them from us. And the thing is, when we do have some money in the government, they put it into these special funds, which they know very well are going to do projects that we don't vote whether we want these projects or not. The council are going to knock it through with the hammer because, it's money. Well, it's like they've won the lottery, where is all this much money coming from? These councillors are like, people spending money. It's not their money, but they're getting to choose and decide. We're not voting on it, and they're not acting on our consultations either. And they've made the petitions websites, the local council petition websites are very hard to use on purpose. They're hard to log into, they're hard to view, they're hard to search the petitions, and it's hard to get people to sign because they've got to go through a rigorous process to sign up. So it's strategically and purposefully designed to block and obstruct you, right, from getting signatures, and especially 5% to get referendums, which are guaranteed, right? Because Labour don't want you to decide. That party wants control, and all its builder friends and pals who are Labour voters, the whole thing, right? They're all making money out of it. They've got a really good handshaking, and it's corrupt, it's criminal, it's against the Constitution. And this is why now when we get, I know that I've been going through this really quick, but I didn't want the video to be that long, and it's going up to 40 odd minutes now. But why I don't like this fund that you're talking about, this Brownfield land release fund, is that there were loads of campaign groups opposing this money being spent. Look at Save Manchester Greenbelt. They're running around like headless chickens trying to stop it. There are loads of campaign groups, but they're all quite small, and they all struggle to get people bothered to help them or interest. And they always seem to do these judicial reviews that cost a fortune, and it's more money. This brownfield development's not paying for the, a judicial review, is it? You know, if people want to challenge it, where's the free legal aid? Where's legal services from the council acting for us? Well, they're not going to, because they're going to back the council and they're going to back the Labour Party and they're not going to back the electors, right? This money, right, it's like Gordon Brown money, this. This is like Gordon Brown gold. It's like bars of gold that they're going to give away, right, to private businesses and companies. Effectively, right, the people who do the work on these buildings, right, the people who do the work on these buildings, there's already a building there, right? You don't need to pay money for a building because we've got one, right? Now, I'm not saying that it should be like Night at the Museum with, you know, like cobwebs and creaky stuffed bears or anything like that, and, you know, just because you want a bit of history, like Tulsa Museum, right? But some of these buildings, the outside of it is only as much as character as the inside of it. You know, the wood, the panels, the antiquity of the building. It doesn't have any antiquity inside of it. There's no antiquity inside the building, right? And there isn't any antiquity left in Huddersfield at all, hardly. And, you know, the only antiques left in government are these councillors. In fact, the councillors are like the stuffed bears and stuffed waxwork dummies in the museum, but they're in a modern council building. This modern Kirklees council building, right? It is the Night at the Museum. It's like a horror show inside that council. It's a modern building with creaky cobwebs and stuffed bears inside it, right? Because they're criminal, they're corrupt people, and they're not following the rules. And it's Labour, and Starmer is leading that party now, right? Now, they just have no sentiment. There's no sentiment at all. And why? What you might say, well, what about the people who support it? All the people who are for it, right? Mainly young people, right? One of the biggest groups is the Huddersfield Then and Now group, which is putting all the old photographs and all the you know, the old things, right? But they're not going out and looking at them in real life. They're not going around walking up and down Home Firth, you know. They're actually driving around looking at it on a screen now, as if it's some light up, you know, picture frame, like, you know, a digital picture frame or something. The young people are only for it because of the advertising and media. You know, they've got, when they go to McDonald's, they've got all the deals and offers and pamphlets and the little things they get on it, the stickers, you know, modern things, trendy things, modern things, trendy things, football deal, trendy football deal, new football kit, offers. And then you've got, you know, the cinema deals. It's the whole retail park mindset. It's the whole go to the cinema, eat the sweets from the cinema, get the hot dog, you know, get the deal, you know, go watch the movie, get primed with the latest modern things, you know, go around B&Q, get the screws. And the television as well, the television is like, oh, you do your house up like this, do your house up like that, want it like this, want it like that. It's all influencer material. And then your council's throwing up the, you know, blueprint from Huddersfield around there. Oh, everyone likes this, everyone wants to do this, or do they? Are you actually... And even Wakefield Council, right, have got a Facebook page. They've got... They're you're not allowed... A council is not allowed to influence electors, right? It's not allowed to influence electors in building and planning decisions or voting, right? Yet... It's putting these radio shows on there aimed at young people, and it's called the Regeneration Show. Now, this is the type of people in Huddersfield who are in that regeneration group. Like, they're effectively like the Sadiq Khan, Mayor of London, G30 City people, but in Huddersfield. It's like the equivalent of all the pro Mayor of London people, but in Huddersfield, right? And they're knocking out all these radio shows, but the council's putting them on its website, right, in Wakefield. And it's called the Regeneration Show, right? Now, when the BBC put a programme out, they're not allowed to show one view or one side. They've got to have both, or it breaks impartiality rules, right? Wakefield Council don't have a radio show that they're putting on there saying, let's not regenerate the town centre, okay? So, for or against, they've erased, removed, obliterated, or it doesn't even exist, the opposite view, opposite option of not regenerating, and then instead they've replaced it with, here's a show of regeneration, because that's what we're going to do whether you like it or not, because look, your consultation and petitions aren't going to get anywhere, right? And then it's all about, well, they're selling it to the kids. How shall we regenerate? Given that we're going to regenerate it whether you like it or not, because we're all for pro-regeneration. That's what we're advertising to the public. That's what we're pushing to the public. That's what we're promoting to the public. And then all the kids then will be debating, how shall we regenerate it? Because there is no other opinion. There is no other view. There is no, this is the radio show of not regeneration. In fact, the Huddersfield Then and Now group, it is the only group of people that seems to like what Huddersfield used to be like in the old and traditional areas, if there's anything left of them by the time they're finished. And that group will never vote. It won't cast its vote. It won't cast its opinion. It won't use its 20,000 strong membership to stop or block the council. And in that group, you get people here, which is what I'm talking to, people in the middle of the road. And some of them really are upset about what's happening, no doubt. And some of them are for it. But a lot of them are like here, which is what we're talking about, which is kind of like they're just reasoning. They're reasoning, they're debating, they're like, oh, but the council have got this fund, or but the council have got that fund, or but they're allowed to do this. Well, do you support it? Well, I don't know. This is the thing. I mean, while we're just stood there with his jaws dropped to the floor at the bulldozer tearing the town to pieces, right? Just bystanders, gawping, who don't know they've got political powers and that the council is corrupt and criminal, right? The demolition commences. The demolition is what we're witnessing. The massacre. Right? And the Huddersfield that I grew up in and like and love particular things, specific places, this council has put a hammer down, and in many cases it hasn't even, people haven't even abided by the rules. They never put a notice up. And that's another thing. These television programmes, they play this music, like this kind of like cheeky music, like when they do naughty things. They do naughty, sneaky things, like they'll have like a guy sneak into a room and put a vase on the table or something like that. And the BBC use that psychological strategy, whereas, oh, it's a bit cheeky, I shouldn't be doing it, but I'm going to do it anyway. Now, that is the strategy, and that is the psychology through the television, through ITV and BBC, which is affecting persons to cheat and think that it's not bad, it's not criminal, it's not illegal. Like, oh, I just won't put this little sign up, what I'm supposed to put up to say planning, and oh, they didn't notice, and now the entire building's been demolished, right? Now, that's a strategy. That's a national, psychological, criminal strategy through the BBC and TV and all the developers and people, because all these protesters, right, who are protesting in London and getting prosecuted for criminal damage, that Criminal Damage Act is privileged. It's got privilege clause in it. It means that if you've got a legitimate political cause to government, like a petition to government, right, you can be privileged. If it's declared political cause, like Save the Trees or whatever, right, you're not liable to criminal damage. You can't be prosecuted. It's the right of the subjects to petition the king, and all prosecutions and commitments for doing so are illegal, right? Now, but they've been denying that. They've been denying the right. And this is the thing with Extinction Rebellion and Just Stop Oil. They've been getting prosecuted when they're protected. Now, there's another act called the Malicious Damage Act, which covers arson, fires, and entire buildings being destroyed. Now, that's a more serious act than criminal damage, and no builder or anyone has claimed political rights or that they're petitioning government, right? They've not demolished the building to make a political point or to prove something, right? They've done it for their own personal profit, business profit, financial profit and gain and ownership, right? It's not a matter of church, state or law. The Malicious Damage Act is more serious. Now, if you breach planning regulations, right, it's a fine. And the council have got to take you to civil court. If you breach planning regulations, there's a fine. But that's not the end of it. Because did they do it on purpose? Did they purposefully, with intent, do it? It wasn't an accident. Most people who break planning rules do it on purpose, right? Because they don't want to comply with the regulation or rule. But the fine is meant to be there as a penalty because you broke your the plans that you put in. You didn't do what you said you were going to do in the plans, and you get fined, right? But additionally, if there was criminal intent there, like you intended to do it on purpose to get the building down, and then once it's down, might as well carry on, right? That's a malicious damage, right? And that's more serious than criminal damage. And there's no clause in the Malicious Damage Act which you can get privileges for. And no one's getting prosecuted. The police aren't prosecuting because the police are pro C40 cities, or the Sadiq Khan, Mayor of London, and his Davos, New World Order, cities. All this is to do with the Labour Party, Keir Starmer, all these plans for what they're going to do with the cities. The police are in on it because they like the security part of it and they want to get all their cameras in. Although in London they're opposing that, the public are cutting them all down, taking them all down and blocking the installation of them, right? But that hasn't reached up here yet. But they're doing what they're doing here is they're not saying, this is one of the new cities, but they're priming them, they're getting them ready for it through, without declaring it as such, just through the fixtures and fittings, all the these smart cities, bollards come up, bollards come down, and all that, and everything's under surveillance. There's also the campaign group Big Brother Watch as well, which is on the front line against all this in London as well. If you look at the Big Brother Watch website, that's opposing all these things that are happening. They're not really doing much up here with it. We don't have any Blade Runners around here yet, but they've started putting those yellow cameras up around Huddersfield. I'm just letting you know what's going on, because a lot of people in Huddersfield are just still stood there on the pavement, just looking at a bulldozer rip the town to pieces, or looking at their digital picture frame on Huddersfield Then and Now, and not acting, or they don't want to act, or they're not going to do anything. I don't know why people in Huddersfield just refuse to act. I don't know if it's because they're thick, whether they're stubborn, whether it's hard to get them to do something. They're like a brick wall for Barry Shearman. There are people, they've got this redevelopment group, and there are some people who are in favour of it, and they're just doing it anyway. But I know there are a lot of people who are opposed to it and a lot of people who don't like it, and there's a Save the Trees group as well. And there are people who are in the middle of the road and they're not too sure either way, but they're kind of arguing for or against, or just trying to reason with people, honestly reason with them, right? How the council are doing this is criminal. It's illegal. They've set the petitions website up to be extremely difficult to use on purpose, so you won't succeed, right? Because if you do, we automatically get referendums on these things, and the council aren't allowed to make a decision on it. They're not allowed to, and they've hotwired the consultations. I think that those consultations are illegal because it is if the government asks you, or the local council asks you for your opinion on the planning thing, it's as good as a petition signature, right? It's your opinion on a matter of the local council, right? So the figures that they're getting in for those, the amount of responses, I'd really like to see if any of them get up to around 5%. The reason that they don't want to have to act on it is that if they did act on it and it's only a small amount, then only a few people decide, the ones who are in favour or against, and they much just rather the councils decide it than us. They don't want us to decide it because they don't want the town to be controlled by the people. They don't want decisions to be controlled by the people. Every single thing that has been put through and come through this council is coming from a strategic area, strategic origins and financial profits. But it comes back down to this profits of the realm, which is legally required. But the realm's not in profit. You might say, well, they've got money for this fund here, this BrownField land release fund, right? But central government are saying that the government is in debt and they're borrowing money, right? They're saying that there's a black hole. But they're managing to they're not putting that money in that fund for us to have, they're doing it for private companies. That money is to give to a profit of builders, right? Builders and developers. That fund is the profit of builders and developers fund that Labour are going to give to private companies and so forth. And also, it's to do with these cities that the Mayor of London's the head of as well, and the future. They've got a long-term plan for it, which all involves automated bollards, automated access. They would try to do these 15-minute cities where you can't even travel from one part of the town to another part of the town, and all the surveillance cameras and the rest of it, which isn't being discussed currently in Huddersfield because it's not. They haven't made this declaration. Oh, we're prepping the place for these fully automated cities and so forth. It's all part of that. Some people are happy with, a beautiful traditional village, like in the Cotswolds. We're getting less of those places now because they're pulling places down, and the type of buildings that are getting applied for and approved don't fit with the area. They don't fit with the style of the area. There's a legal requirement for buildings to fit with the style of the area, but they're not doing that. That's another crime that the council are doing, and they did that here. They've done that here. They sneaked the planning. They didn't put the notices up. The whole thing's criminal, and instead of correct it, what Starmer's doing is he's trying to scrap the building regulations so they don't even need permission, so they're going to be doing it even easier, right, when they haven't even been doing it lawfully in the first place. So as far as I'm concerned, we're being robbed. We're being robbed by private profit, for-profit companies, right? It doesn't matter whether you walk around the town centre and you like it or don't like it, because people have got photographs of the town centre in the 1800s and it's immaculate, it's actually a lot tidier. And what the council are also doing is they're allowing all these JC Deco places. Notice the pavements are closed, you can't walk past the pavement. They're bothered about health and safety, yet you can't even walk up and down a pavement without walking into some sort of post or sign or advertisement or metal trees or whatever. It's like an obstacle course. And all that is for profit. Oh, we'll make some money out of it. JC Deco will be, paying for advertising. Money, right? Yeah, it's all going to these private companies, and then you've got this, with trillions at their disposal, and this is how Charles ties into it, because he's going on about, it's a private military style campaign, beyond leaders, with trillions at their disposal, because it's only these companies who are the ones going into the councils, putting the plans down on the table and getting them approved without our vote, or lobbying Labour, or becoming part of the council, becoming part of the development strategy, becoming part of the care group or whatever housing group for money. a lot of people aren't necessarily happy about all these plans for housing extension anyway. And then we've got all this influx of foreign immigrants drove over because of the war in Ukraine and other wars, who are actually criminals and the crime's going up. We're the ones it gets taken out on, right? And then the solution is more cameras and surveillance so they can spy on everyone. This is strategized. It's planned. The whole Putin war in Ukraine so they can rebuild Ukraine and make money out of that as well. It all ties into it as well. So, you know, there's no sentiment in this place. There's no antiquity. There's no tradition. There's no intelligence. I don't think there's any. I don't think that there's much education in the political process, because all the young people are just like, hey, this is cool, we've got a fund, we've got commercial radio, we're in a holiday, the distractions. And to be honest, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in America, right, they're actually going to have to now completely change the entire food system in America, because it's all been causing health problems and obesity and cancers and diabetes. And they've realised that they've made a big mistake with the design of food, with fast food as a model, with drive-thrus as a model. And that's the whole thing with like these retail parks, literally like, the Odeon Cinema and B&Q and Starbucks. Some people like it, some people love it, when you've got, mums and kids and they just want to go through the drive-through and so forth and so forth. But it's been making people unhealthy. But the council, they were slamming the hammer down on the table, bang, 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 approving all these things. And they actually didn't really know what they're doing. And even though they might have been novel, trendy, cool, the football club like it, they've got a new athletics track, and so forth. It's good for them, as long as they've got the football stadium, as long as they've got the retail parks, and they're going and getting the latest mobile phone, and the Kingsgate Centre, and they're coming out with the mobile phones, they're coming out with the trainers, they're coming out with the Greg's passes and so forth. But the Kingsgate Centre is a horrible building. It's a monstrosity. They had the ship in by the roundabout at bottom of town, that could have been some kind of, that ship in actually could have been a really nice building for whatever you use it for, whether it was a restaurant or even an eating place or even some kind of education place tied into the university, but keep the old building. Aspley Wharf and that bottom part of town could flourish and be tied in with the river for a very, very natural area and environment without any pollution, where you've got a natural river with stones by it, and you can sit there and talk, and they could even have things growing there, council. There are people who are doing fully edible allotments at the moment, which actually are just like lush with all different manners of plants and growth and things like that. There are so many things you can do rather than just these media centre, university building and so forth. Particularly when, the compromise between character, antiquity, and a sense of belonging, a soul of a place, right? By Kirklees Council, it's not like 50-50 or even, 75-25. It's like, 90%, it's like 90% to 10%, Huddersfield has been battered by just an obsession with this so-called progress, but it's not progress. It's a obsession and perpetual endless regeneration, and they don't know how to stop. They don't know when to stop. It's like someone stuffing themselves with pies and they just can't stop eating. And this is what the human race has a problem with. Yet the police are all, slow down, stop. Why can't we say that to builders? Why can't we say slow down, stop, right? They don't want to do it because they're not making any money out of it anymore. And they're not getting punished properly either. They're not getting punished on the Malicious Damage Act. What I don't like about it is we're cheated out of our democratic vote. And I don't mean the councillors have voted to do work in the council, not always be the decision makers, and they don't want to give up the decision to us. And it's the Labour Party, and I'm not saying not the Tories as well, but mainly in our area, the Labour Party, the way they're running the council and the democratic part of it is criminal with strategic intention. The way the local petitions website is operated and run, and the way that consultations are handled and managed and how it's applied is stealing our democratic vote and process. And they've got into the business of influencer marketing when it's illegal, like Huddersfield Blueprint and everything, so they can make it look more like everyone supports it. And then the people who aren't too keen on it or who are in the middle, it makes it look like everyone supports it and they've misled us. And that's actually a crime by the council because it's actually illegal. It's an offence. And I know they're doing that because Wakefield Council are doing it with radio shows. I know exactly how they're doing it and exactly what they're doing. And it doesn't matter whether all the local people support it or the young people support it. I mean, not the... I don't mean all the local people. I kind of meant the sort of people who are like in the... regeneration sort of group. I meant all those sort of people. It's that they're all being. It's all influencer marketing, and it's not. It's additional influencer marketing through television and media. When it should purely come down to the vote, and everyone's trying. When I mean to say everyone's trying, everyone who wants to try, everyone like in these Save the Trees groups or some of the other groups who want to try to do something about it, like in Murfield with that Charlotte Tyler woman who did a lot of campaigning and won, but then later on, the other part of the town suffered. It's when you win, right, you're meant to win. But they keep coming back again and again and again and again, so until you're tired and you give up. The corporate sector are cheating with the political parties. There's no doubt about it. So that's where I am with it. Whether you agree with me or not, that is my opinion. And I condemn this council. They're criminal. They've been engaging in criminal activity. The whole party. It's not just the council, the MPs, central government, all these money funds. It's going to profits, right? Now, you might say, oh, this BrownField Development Fund, it's going to do all these people a favour. These people who buy the building, we're going to help them out, right? And then after the council have done it up, they've saved them the job. Who's helping the people? Who's helping the people get money to get the petition signatures in so they can get a democratic vote? Who's helping the people promote petitions? Not the Huddersfield Examiner, but central government seem to be helping the council give money, do this building up, and then the people who buy it get the asset with having to spend less money themselves. And we've given them a helping hand. But we're not even giving our own voters a helping hand to get the signatures in. Oh, no, sorry. The council's going and doing a consultation for us. Aren't they kind? Haven't they gone out of their way for us? Does that come out of the BrownField Landfill Fund as well? Oh, but when we get the results in, we don't have to apply it. We don't have to apply the democratic vote of the consultation to it. When actually... I can't see how they can get around that, because that local petitions order 2010, if you get 5%, right, you actually the local council can't decide on it, right, and results from a consultation cannot not be petition worthy. cannot be equal to petition. Because they're asking the public their opinion on a democratic matter of government. So all those responses to consultation are valid for petition because it's a democratic response on a matter. So this is why I've been focusing on London, because it's the people are actually doing something about it there. People are actually acting, and that's why I've been trying to help them with their rights and so forth. In Huddersfield, the reason that I've not been focused on Kirklees Council, well, actually I have, because I put a petition into Parliament to appeal the planning decision for the redevelopment of the town centre. But they rejected it. They said that you can't do it when you can do it. So they lied. So that's corruption. No one's trying in Huddersfield. When you speak in the groups to try and get signatures, no one signs. Everyone just stands there gawping. And if you try and do something, the examiner or whatever tries to, take you out. So no one tries in Huddersfield. And that's my despair. That's the despair. In my own place where I live, no one is even trying to stop this government, right? And I know that they are corrupt, an evil, corrupt government which breaks rules and steals democratic rights and has been doing for a long time. And the only people who are trying at the moment are actually in London. So I've been focusing on that because they're actually making an effort, and they're even struggling, and there are certain laws which need to be upheld and recognised for them to properly do that. And I'm hoping that once we get it acknowledged, then maybe we can use it in Huddersfield. But people in Huddersfield, I don't know why. I think it's because whether they were all Labour voters and they all voted for Labour. But every single new decision that goes through that council can't be assessed except by the evidence. And it's a fresh decision each time. So, no Labour voter can consent to a manifesto when they haven't seen the evidence for each case. Because you can only judge case by case when you put out the evidence on the table. So the whole model of how the councils are working now, it's this strategy-based, long-term plan-making, packages-style government, which cannot be illegal to the democratic vote in a court of law. The council chamber is the local 100 court. It doesn't deal with crime. It doesn't deal with tort cases. They rejected the jury. It's still a court. You've still got to hear evidence, right? And decisions have to be made on each thing, right? You can't just vote for Labour and say, we approve every single thing in the next 12 months automatically because you voted for this party, right? The council's selfless. It can't have a party. The model for how a council works is it's a court-based model where you have things in front of the council and people speak, right? And orders have to be passed, right? So it's just a dysfunctional model, and it's corrupt. And the amount of influence coming in through the TV, the magazines, the shops, and the local council even themselves have just... they've given up all lawfulness is gone. Wakefield Council, with those radio shows for the redevelopment programme, when they're not having a Let's Not Redevelopment programme, it's gone. It's completely and utterly gone, and they're actually, it's not the voters who are controlling the council anymore. The electors are not in control of anything. In fact, it's the companies, the corporate companies now are steering everything. And that's why I don't support this project. And that's why this Brown Fund, right, is just how much money are we going to give to developers? How much, all that money, right, is like, oh, we've got a load of money here we're going to give to our corporate and developer friends and pals, right? And in fact, we'll save them some money because they should be using this money themselves privately, but we're going to actually use the other taxpayers' money to give them a helping hand, which is completely and utterly not for the profit of the realm. It's for the profit of private businesses. And that's when you get confused with the word parlay and to parlor, to talk and meet on things, or rather than to make money out of our government. Our government's meant to be in profit and meant to have money like these funds, but to use for all manner of things, like, you know, when there were people in poverty and things like that. And to be honest, all these companies have got that much money now. Why are they even using these central government funds? You know, and then there's the national lottery that people are giving money to all the time. It's just ridiculous. I won't mind, but we're not getting a vote, a democratic vote, on what happens to this money at all, or whether we want it to be used in our area. And some areas of England, you know, have got no need or intention or to go anywhere near that money. You know, they've always been happy with what they've got and they really like it. It's about salesmanship, people trying to sell you something that you don't want or need, or trying to work out that, you know, you shouldn't like what you've got. There's no profit in someone having something which they're happy with once they've already bought it, right? There's no further profit except for the occasional maintenance. And that's no good for these businesses who need money constantly all the time now, and they need more and more money. And as they grow bigger, it's like a person getting fatter and fatter and fatter. To maintain the weight, you need to eat more and more food, right? Because if you stop eating that certain amount of food, you will start losing weight again. And that's what's happened with the food industry and why we've got all ill, right? And if we don't control this population explosion, which has mainly been forced now from overseas immigration and wars and things like that being forced into the country, which is actually affecting justice. You've got this naturalisation process, which is in law. Magna Carta and the protection of the rights and liberties of the realm, and actually protecting the culture and heritage, ancient customs, is about protecting the people. And when you've got foreign denizens and aliens coming into the country, in law, right, and in protected law, not just like any law, the law that can't be changed, they've got to be naturalised, which means that they become accustomed to our customs, laws and traditions, right? They become English, British. And that rate is accelerated to an extent where it's making the country become not British anymore, rather than making aliens become British. And this is where we're having disputes over freedom of speech, over, you know, praying outside abortion clinics, abortion itself, Kim Leadbeater with her assisted suicide bill, all this police surveillance and the whole thing. And we're actually end up fighting with each other now because we've got less naturalised people who are meant to be altruistic and not fight each other. So they're forcing immigration. And, you know, Sadiq Khan is probably the mascot for it. You know, Sadiq Khan, I don't think Sadiq Khan's naturalised because he's Muslim, and then he's got a perfect London accent, but he's not fully naturalised. And discrimination against religion and race, right? Fair enough, but the whole court system is based on the Christian tradition, and it's a Christian framework in law through, you know, swearing on the Bible and giving evidence, and also the juries who are meant to, you know, courts of conscience and being forgiven and so forth. When you've got juries who are denizens or aliens or not naturalised, you're not going to get the proper justice also in the courts as well when it's working properly, although they've taken the jury out of the courts now. But also when it comes to making planning decisions on what as towns and cities should look like, or if we should preserve them. If you're getting lots of non-naturalised people coming in, right, to the Cotswolds, they might say, oh, this is crap, we don't like it, we don't like these Cotswold villages, and then they might just build a shopping centre there. Yeah, in the planning rules, it's meant to keep to the style of the area. I think, this is my opinion, right? I think we're being invaded, and I don't think that the people who've got all the money care, except when they've got their own protected estates, like, private golf courses, or Donald Trump with his, whatever, his Mar-a-Lago or whatever. And they're even starting to get rid of the Lords, because Starmer wants to scrap the House of Lords, really, and he wants to get rid of all the earls who've got all these lands and estates, and a lot of those lands and estates are traditional. They've got traditional style, features, houses and things like that. So, once they break up and go, and if they scrap private schools, you won't be able to go to... Not a lot of people get to see those private schools. I was very lucky. I didn't go to private school, but I've been in them, and I appreciate the antiquity of it, and the okay, so maybe it's like a Harry Potter film or something like that, but this is the thing. We've got museums, we've got people who like archaeologists and things like that, but there's this constant push for new things all the time, but the new things aren't even lasting. The mobile phone that you get is, they're wanting you to have it for a shorter amount of time, until you throw it away. The new thing, they're trying to get rid of all the old things for the new things, and the new things expire. A mobile phone lasts 3 years, now you only have to keep it 2 years, and then, by a year it's out of date. So nothing is permanent anymore. It's like, is every object going to end up as some kind of like, gleaming matrix thing in your hand that is just constantly replenishing itself? Or are you going to end up holding some kind of living phone which is growing? What do you want it to grow into? A baby. A baby's meant to be in your womb, not in your hand. Where does this stop with AI and things like that? And this is why, sometimes people need to stop, and not just people who are driving down the roads. The police are like, oh, they're the ones who need to stop and slow down. But why aren't the police ever saying, why don't the council stop? Why don't the council slow down? Oh, the council have broken the law. Or the council have broken the rules, or the council haven't complied with this act or that legislation or that legislation, the democratic saying it. And this is the thing, in these groups, there are people who clearly aren't sure that we should be doing these things. They aren't certain, and that they're saying it is actually not getting accounted for and put to any effect. And that's the criminal part of it. This consultations not accounting for anything, or only being, treated as an advisory source of information so the council can get a general idea, as opposed to, suppose if you get 5%, the council cannot decide on it. They're not allowed to. And they're making it very hard for you to get that 5%. And the newspaper really aren't helping. In fact, they're trying to help the council, So that's my opinion of it.